Hi everyone. I'd like to welcome those present and watching online to your second evening of the Candidates Spotlight. Here we have our candidates for Student Media Officer, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a final year English literature and language student, and I'm running for Student Media Officer because I want to make an evolving student media that leaves nobody behind, and I hope tonight I can explain to you how I'm going to do that and what that actually means.
Hi everyone, I'm Jess. I'm a final year combined honours student in politics and media. Obviously running for student media candidate as well. Yeah, I want to share with you guys my vision tonight.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucy. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a final year English literature student. I'm basically running for student media officer because of how much I love student media and how much it's impacted my whole university life.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to the first segment of the evening, in which we have a series of student-submitted questions. Let's start with the first question. How many hours have you volunteered for student media, and what would you say is the most valuable lesson you have learned from the previous student media officers?
Talking about volunteer hours is a difficult one, as I'm sure anyone in student media can say. From a week to week, it probably changes. When the sub-editors are laying up a paper, I'm in there almost every day, whether it's playing annoying videos to annoy everyone or it's just helping out a sub-editor with the layups and giving advice. On a senior editor week, it's a couple of hours over a couple of days a week, editing, helping out there. I'm on the radio once a week. I'm also the first person to agree to go on anyone's show. Catch me on the Literary Lounge this Thursday. Honestly, I can't come out here and be like 251 hours. You just can't simply do that. But I share a good chunk of my time in that office, in the studio, and with student media. So I'm sorry, I can't give you a number. But as far as learning from student media officers, the past 2 years, my perspectives have been shaped so much by the people around me. I've learned from everyone, with the editors I've worked with, to the writers, learnt from the people I've been tutoring myself. You really do learn from everyone around you, and I want to give that back next year if I was elected.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm the same. Well, you can't really put a specific number, but it's definitely like upwards of 250. Time flies when you're having fun, though, when you're doing something you enjoy. So yeah, I also have a weekly radio show, but yeah, it varies every single week, like how much time I'm in the office, because it's not just sitting there doing the work, it's like chatting to everyone, getting to know everyone. It's such a great time.
Yeah, exactly the same as them. Like, it's impossible to put like a quantitative figure to the amount of hours that we volunteer at the office. It ranges so much from just helping to just chatting, because that is exactly what student media is. Like, in the sense of what we've learned from the previous student media officers, like the past 3 student media officers have all kind of shown like how important being confident in yourself, and how just that confidence can basically be transferred onto everyone else on the team. If you've got a happy student media officer, then you've got a happy team, and that's literally all you need.
Do you plan to develop or change software training for the editorial team? If so, how? Would you like to start?
I think the software like development process is quite a difficult one, because when you first get here, it's so daunting because there's so much to get through. Sorry. But then what is interesting is, as the weeks go on, sub-editors get more and more familiar with the programs and like all the different softwares, and then it becomes like to the point where we're at now, where everything is amazing, including the NUTV and NSR. You know, it's something that takes time. So I think the only thing that I would really change is to make sure that everyone feels like they've got access, like at all times, sorry, my voice, to training. If someone feels, you know, in week 3 that they want to know more about how something works in NSR or NUTV, then that is like so important to make sure that the communication is kind of given, so that we can then let everyone sort of develop their skills, not just in the like basis of, you know, week 1 training and then refresher training, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, like Lucy said, that you sort of, I don't know about this. You learn at the start, and then sometimes you sort of forget. I definitely learn by doing things over and over and over. I know some people struggle to remember how to do things like margins, But again, that's just trial and error. So I would like offer regular opportunities. Like if someone airs a particular, like, oh, I'm really struggling with margins, I'm really struggling with how to do this for the radio, I can't remember how to turn everything on. Like regular opportunities just to create an environment where everyone feels comfortable to say like, I don't know how to do this, but like they can come to a senior team and we'll show.
Thank you. I think the approach we took this year with the streamlined training changed by Gabby was a really good approach, splitting people into and meeting their needs. Obviously, you've got to match the needs of the sub-editors as well. When I was a sub-editor, the refresh training really helped for me as well, and that's something I'd like to do. But I think what would be most important is just assessing it on a running basis. What I've learned from my time in student media is the senior editors, the NSR exec and the NUTV exec, they will help. There's a reason why they're in the office and the studios. They are people who will help, and the student media officer can't do everything. So I don't think it's a bad thing to harbour that responsibility with some of the senior editors and the exec to ask, would you mind running a quick workshop? I know when I first got on radio, the lovely head of technology, who I won't name drop, sat me down and helped me work the studio. That really reassured me and helped me so much. I've had people just offer to be in the radio for the first time I was on it. That really helped. And I just know, like, as a rolling basis, I've done it with a bunch of my sub-editors. I'm like, text me when you're going to lay up. I'll be in the office. I'll lay up with you for an hour. I think that rolling basis and not just putting all the responsibility with the student media officer, because people are happy to help, will be most beneficial.
Thank you. We do have a question for a candidate that's not present, but we'll ask it anyways for the rest of the candidates to answer. You mentioned sponsorship in your manifesto as well as editorial independence. How would this work when student media is funded by the union, as well as you holding a sabbatical role in which you have obligations to the student union? Lucy, would you like to start?
I mean, I completely agree with the question. I'm not sure how he was going to plan on doing that, considering the way that the student media is funded. So, yeah, I can't answer that for him.
Yeah, I was gonna fully ask him the same question. Yeah, it's sort of contradictory talking about sponsorship, but also like editorial independence. We're a free newspaper. We keep it that way. That way, we're not compromised.
Fully agree with the guys, and I think everyone in student media would have the same opinion. But while we are on the topic of editorial independence, I do think it's important to know, yes, the relationship is with the union. We are funded by the union, but editorial independence, we still do maintain a factor of that. So the point was obviously written by someone who doesn't have a clue how student media works, because editorial independence is something we work with. Yes, it's a complex relationship, as it is in many papers, but keeping that editorial integrity, I think, is the word I'd like to use, and make sure we're relentlessly platforming the student body regardless. Yes, we work alongside the union, there's a lot of red tape, but I would be relentless in my platforming of student voices.
Thank you. In several manifestos, there is a pledge of the breaking news role. If introduced, how will you support student volunteers who also must manage their degrees? Would you like to start, Sam?
I don't have that in my manifesto, so could I respond to it after the other guys? Sorry.
No worries.
Sorry.
It wasn't my manifesto. I think it's beneficial because it's the sort of skills that, real world journalism, like you're on demand. But obviously prioritize your degree. I would ideally have like a few people, and it can be like more remote because they'd be more likely to be like online only articles. So you could just then, as a breaking news editor, do it from your laptop. But obviously having a small team, you can break it up and communicate effectively, and someone else can do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I also didn't have it on my manifesto, but I do think it's a good idea.
Do you have any more comments?
Yeah, I would like to respond to the idea of breaking news. As the guy who has been like the head of current affairs for the last year, I think breaking news is really important. It does have a place in our student media. However, as I've trialled over the past year and has shown with like the front pages I've worked on and produced, we've done a lot of longer form investigative kind of pieces, and I think those skills are something I'd put more emphasis on for our students, for where we work as a student paper. Obviously, I agree with what you said, and in the idea of my digital expansion, I'd love to do a lot more breaking news, but I think investigative journalism is something I wanted to put a lot more emphasis on. We've had some great articles this year where 2 weeks before print, I've gave someone a prompt, I've told someone to go investigate the North East mayoral elections, they've come back with a quote from every major candidate, and then as breaking news has gone on, when it's time efficient, we've also got that on the front page as well. It's just working with time, and I think from what I've trialled this year, working with current affairs and get these, and especially with the 2-week print and getting the longer form pieces on, give it people have got the time. I think that's an equally important skill that we can't just ignore in the eyes of breaking news, because breaking news isn't always compatible with the student lifestyle. With it's more of a case for me as if we can get this digital push, we can put out a message, get someone to write a quick article, turn it around on the laptop, on WordPress, bang. And if it co-aligns with a print deadline, that's brilliant. But for print, my main focus will continue to be how I've done it the past year, focused on the longer form investigative pieces and seeing what's compatible with them.
Great, thank you so much. Could you detail the experience you have had with Newcastle student media and why this makes you the best candidate? Lucy, would you like to go first?
So, Newcastle student media, gosh, it's a long one. So, I started in first year as a writer, and then from Christmas onwards, I basically decided that I wanted to do more than just write. So I applied to be a music sub-editor because music is what I love the most in the world. But then I proceeded to get it. So I've been a sub-editor for the second half of first year, then the whole of second year. Last year we won, me and Rome as a little team, we won the spread of the year for one of our spreads that we did, which we were really, really proud of. We also came runner-up as section of the year, so we did quite well, I'd say, as a team. Then this year I've managed to step up and be one of the co-head of cultures, which basically means that we're in charge of 12 sub-editors. It's gaming, film, TV, music and arts. And we basically just oversee them, help any sub-editors with whatever they need, like whether that's literally just like welfare, to laying up the spread, to giving them advice, to articles, literally anything like that. So I feel like this would be the next natural step for me to be able to kind of use those sort of leadership skills that I've learned in this role, and also to sort of help other people with their student media careers.
Thank you, Jess.
Yeah, I started writing in my first year, and then the second year I applied for film sub-editor, which I have done again this year, which I really love film, so it's great being able to read people's articles about what I love. I also this year started as, I got elected as the head of radio for Film Society to host their weekly radio show, so I get to talk about films and write about films, so the only thing I could do now is probably make a film. But it's been great staying as sub-editor because I sort of have got to practice the skills that I was developing last year, get even better. I've also helped out with NUTV this year. I helped out with the Freshers Week coverage, which was really fun. Getting to film things and see these amazing activities. Helped out with Fight Night as well. Seeing behind the scenes stuff was really beneficial to understanding how NUTV works. I think that sort of makes me the best candidate in that I've had experience with all three. I've met so many people. I've been able to identify the good, the bad. What could we do better?
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I've had quite a journey in student media. I started off as everyone did, writer last year, campus comments sub-editor, this year head of current affairs. I have my own little team. I think we're up to 13 sub-editors with new additions now. I run the pages on my own, so that's been quite a journey. I've done a lot of the front pages this past year, and that's been really fun. I've started a radio show. I've had a lot of guests from just outside student media, getting a lot of people different in to talk about different perspectives. That's been really fun. I've sat on the media executive committee. That's been a really enlightening experience. I think that positions me as a really good candidate because I've got that insight into what the inner mechanisms of student media has been and how we've made some of the decisions of the past year. And I really understand a lot of the nature of it. I don't want to use the term bureaucracy, but if it fits. I've also went to every single student council as a reporter. That's been a really fun experience. And again, I understand a lot of the bigger picture outside the student media officer role specifically. And I think I know what it means to be a sabbatical officer. And I've got that interpretation as well, just outside of student media. But yeah, I could probably talk a lot more about the student media experience, but I'll save that for now.
Thank you. How will you balance the various branches of student media whilst also evolving and developing each one? Sam, do you want to start?
Amazing. So this covers one of my key points in my manifesto. I want to digitally expand, and that includes to all three branches. The Courier's print product is a practiced, and I don't mind saying perfected module. It's model even. It's a great thing we're all proud of, but I think digitally we've got so much to go. I did the News Associates workshop with a lot of other student media organisations in November, and I learned a lot about how they digitally operate, and I think we can sample a lot of that. The same goes for NSR and NUTV. Obviously, it's a different way of digital expansion, but I think there's a lot to do. NSR maybe getting on TuneIn and applying for the streaming on there would be a really good approach. As well, one of my key manifesto points is creating a cyclical media. What that means is I want to share opportunities across all branches. I don't see why, if we're doing an interview in the Courier, it's not filmed by NUTV. Or I'd love to do a podcast, which is an interview, and then someone writes about that podcast reviewing the interview. That way we've got someone learning skills from interviewing on a podcast, someone doing the tech behind the podcast, someone writing in the Courier, reviewing the podcast, someone editing the article and letting it up. Sharing these skills across all branches, we're pushing them all simultaneously and also facilitating the correct assets and skills to our volunteers, which is the main important thing at the end of the day.
Thank you. Jess?
Well, yeah, like Sam said, the Courier is pretty, well, I wouldn't say perfect, but like it works very well. I do think student media is quite Courier-centric at the minute. In terms of volunteers, there's a lot of people want to get involved with NSR and NUTV, but there's not as many opportunities, but also like low commitment opportunities. Because like with writing, you can dip in, dip out, but for NSR, it's sort of like you're committed to a weekly radio show. NUTV, I saw in Freshers Week and Fight Night, there was a lot of interest. There's just not enough throughout the year. So I think like, yeah, creating more opportunities, working with societies and like sports clubs to then create those opportunities is great. But yeah, I really want to push like more opportunities across all of them because then we can help each branch grow.
Thank you. Lucy?
Yeah, no, so I think like the great thing about student media itself is how kind of democratic it all is. We all have our own voice and we all get to say exactly how we want it to look. I think especially the great thing about NSR and NUTV is the fact that we've got our own station managers. So I think as the student media officer, I definitely want to work in really close collaboration with them to kind of completely understand how they like see the like station developing, then kind of working with them to make sure that that happens. The balancing of the various branches, I think, is really quite easily done when you've got such an amazing team of people who are so passionate about something. And that is definitely what we have here because of, you know, the perfect model of the Courier and the amount of like interest that we have in both the radio and the TV station are really, really good. So, yeah, I think.
Thank you. What will you do in your role to unite the branches of student media? Lucy, would you like to start?
Yeah, of course. That kind of brings me to one of my manifesto points about how I kind of want to use this kind of concrete, solidified society spotlight, which will be kind of just a known thing across campus. That is such a transferable thing that we can put across both the radio and the TV to make sure that kind of everyone knows about it, because like I was speaking to quite a few people who aren't involved in media, and they didn't even know that we had like a radio and TV show. Like it's just not as prominent as the paper. So I think that being able to kind of spread this through societies and clubs, which is the main things that people do at uni anyway, that's so crucial to being able to sort of unite these branches of student media itself.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I also mentioned like societies being able to use that to create more opportunities. I think, yeah, like interviews. So we currently have a society spotlight in lifestyle, but because of like the 2-week prints, it's very like we're not putting a dent. There's too many societies that aren't getting a chance to shine. This could then be, you could have like society spotlight in the paper, but then maybe you interview the committee for radio, maybe you then film events for them. So that way there's more opportunities to get involved, but like they're all sort of interconnected.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely agree with what the guys are saying. Returning to the manifesto point I said, the idea I've got of this cyclical media, in my perfect student media world, we are sharing all these opportunities. And I know sometimes it's not always that possible. Like, if you're wanting to interview someone, you can't always just be able to drag them to the NSR studio or get them to sit down in front of NUTV. Sometimes a quick interview in the Courier is the easiest way, and that's fine. We're not saying every single thing has to be like, right, we're going to give you guys all a segment of the pie. No, we're just going to make a bunch of pies and share them out towards everyone. Not to repeat the point, but I do really think the way forward would be creating this like content wheel almost, where I've said it in my Instagram as well. I think it used to be a thing where a lot of the Courier senior editors would go on NSR every week and just run down their super section, a few articles, highlight it, interview a few people, a few writers. I think that's a great idea to bring back. Even if it's just every other week, we could get writers on who are not familiar with NSR and just write for the Courier, talk to them about our articles, make them feel confident in their skills to write more, and just really, again, like you're getting more content on NSR and you're promoting the Courier. It's just creating this cycle that pushes all three at the same time.
Thank you so much. We will now move on to the debate segment of the evening. I would like to remind the candidates not to speak over one another, and please raise your hand if you would like to challenge another candidate's statement. So the question is, Newcastle student media thrives because of its passionate volunteer community. How will you, as student media officer, make sure to value those volunteers and give them the skills they need to succeed? Luce, would you like to start?
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Like, the passion in student media is unmatched, and I've been blessed to have seen that in my 3 years. All you have to do is just to walk into the Courier office, the NSR studio. I'll use a very good anecdote. The 24-hour stream with NSR and NUTV. If you want to see passion, see a group of people staying up for 24 hours doing stuff like that. Like, the fact we've got such good bonds formed from these things that we're willing to stay up for 24 hours and go slightly delusional. I did pop in at 5 a.m. and that was great. But I think it's the passion's there, the want is there. It's just giving them the assets and the skills. I return to my point of the digital expansion, because I do think that's a really important step in the future. We all love print, we all love seeing us name in print, but with the digitalization of almost everything in the world, it's not just for people who want to be journalists, it's digital marketing and just digital centric. By moving towards a new digital future and not leaving anything behind that we're currently doing, I do think it's giving our volunteers a good preparation, the more skills they need, and a lot more of a realistic future in the fields they want to go into as well.
Yeah, student media would not work without volunteers at all. Someone that's done a lot of volunteering this year, partly because I live alone, I don't want to go crazy. So you gain so many skills, but like there could be more. So this year we have seen some great like speakers come in, opportunities for workshops and stuff. Like me and Lucy hosted a culture one where how to write a review. Stuff like even hosted by the team to pass on their skills are really beneficial. Volunteering in general, it's like the NCL Plus Award, which I just encourage everyone to do. I do the logging hours. You can get nice certificates, so if you like collecting things. But I really want to push and make sure like the volunteers are getting recognized adequately. Opportunities for skills, like the skills development that maybe people be more interested in, like social media editing, because I know there's a demand for that, or like more digital skills. So I'd really want to do some workshops so that people can learn that, because it's in demand at the minute.
Yeah, I think obviously, as we were saying, the passion in student media is insane, and I've never seen it anywhere else before, even on our degrees. But I do think that I would definitely have a sort of open door opportunity, which is something that I've spoken about previously, where it kind of feels like anyone can come in and give their feedback, whether they're a writer, whether they've never contributed before, Mike, and whether they're a sub-ed, whatever they want to do. I want to make everyone feel like they are more than welcome to be heard. It can be daunting to walk into the SMA room with a room full of people who know each other. So I think I want to really kind of emphasize that there's value in everything that you do, not just if you're a sub-ed. I want to make sure that writers feel acknowledged and they feel like they can contribute to stuff as well and are recognized. So, yeah, and I also think the skills, giving them the skills that they need to succeed, well, that's kind of natural if you've been trained in as a sub-ed anyway, because you're going to get trained on Photoshop, you're going to get trained on InDesign, you're going to get shown how to lead a group of people who kind of look up to you. So I think that they all come naturally with the role, but also just kind of providing an extra platform to make sure that everyone feels sort of safe and welcome.
Do you guys have any more comments to make?
I think Lucy touched on like a really important point there with it's not just about the skills as well, it's the environment you create, and we do have a really great healthy environment in student media, and I think it's really important to keep that going. It's not just facilitating people who want to use this as a career, it's facilitating this as a safe space for anyone who wants to come, use it as an extracurricular, use it for a bit of fun, a bit of like a blow off steam. I told people the other day I was writing an article about walk of shame outfits the other day, and then the next day I was writing an article about geopolitics. Like, it's fine, and that's what you can do. This is what student media can do for you, and I want to be able to represent the entire student body and letting them know this is what student media can do for you. It can cater to your needs, to your skills. There's not just one set of skills we're trying to push. Despite my manifesto of like, yes, I want to push digitalization and a cyclical media, and I think those skills will be really relevant. It's meeting the students where they want to be met at and letting our volunteers volunteer as much as they want. Sorry, my watch is going off.
Yeah, I mean, student media is a great community, and I really like the community aspect. But obviously, being on the editorial team, I see a lot of you guys all the time. But I get that, like, the writers don't really know anyone. Like Lucy said, it's daunting walking in the first time. Like, my first year, I didn't come to a single student media afternoon. I just waited till all the articles were on Discord. But I felt like I was missing out. We've had a good range of socials this year, which I have unfortunately been missing a few of them. But I think having, like socials and the Writers Lounge, which was recently introduced, that can help just getting to know people, like passions, interests, like similar to you. And it's great. It's a great way of meeting a diverse range of people. So yeah, I really want to, like, there's a way of valuing your volunteers, creating like a safe community where they're welcome to come talk.
Do you guys have any more comments to add? Sorry. Okay. Does anyone have a question? Yes?
Well, I know like not every society advertises their events through NUSU. Following through my campaign account, like a variety of societies, you get to see so many like events that if you're not following them, you wouldn't have found out about or isn't on the NUSU website. I also really like the whole, picking it up tangibly, like rather than, scrolling on NUSU's page. I think it's a good way, and it just makes like our student media very campus focused. So like there's the informing aspect, but also like you sort of working with other like societies as opportunities to share what's going on.
Yeah, sorry.
Can you say something nice you gave the student?
Do you want to start, Sam? Yeah.
Lovely question. There's a bunch of things you could say, but I will give a nice sloppy answer. I think it's been able to represent the student body and yourself in a really good way, platform your voice. Gain so much opportunities to like express myself in different ways. Short little anecdote. I grew up with frontonasal dysplasia, and last year I was able to interview a model with the exact same condition as me. It went in the last year's magazine. That was an amazing experience that I wouldn't have been able to have done without student media. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have done. I wouldn't have had the probably confidence to reach out and message this random model in New York on Instagram asking if he wanted to hop on Zoom at 3 a.m. But you know what, I did, and it was a great experience. I think that's part of the reason I want to share that experience and share that level of representation across the entire student body. It's big, ambitious, but we'll see.
For me, it's the sense of community. So I do combined honours, and it's a very weird degree to do because you sort of dip in, dip out with modules. So I always felt a bit like left out when people that do all the compulsory like politics modules. They all know each other. They're all like chatting, and it's been great because I meet people from a range of like degrees and disciplines, but also things that we can just chat about anything. Like whether it's the writers with like films, I get to read some really cool or not so cool hot takes. But like everyone I've met is just friendly. Yeah, I wouldn't have really had that. Like if I had been just doing my degree this whole time, I'd have been so lonely.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with my favorite thing about student media is just the community that it's kind of connected you to. You're connected with like-minded people who also have different opinions about things, so it's kind of weird, and everyone's always really chatty. The socials are always fun. The office is just a safe space where we all feel like we can go and just chill out if we've had a stressful day, or if the day's going bad, then it's kind of nice because you can go there and there'll be someone there who'll be able to laugh at you, probably. But it's always in a nice way. So.
Any more questions in the audience? Go on.
I have a question. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but you were all talking about community. So I just wanted to know if any of you have plans on how to make more a comfortable environment for people of colour who want to get involved in student media.
Do you want to start, Sam?
Absolutely. My third point of my manifesto is representation and collaboration, and that goes to the entire student body. I think it's important to highlight any student perspective, student opinion. If you want to speak specifically about the perspectives of people of colour, I just think at Black History Month, I think we do a lot of really nice themed articles during that. From my own work in current affairs, I know we've had a lot of nice pieces on that, and I think it's a lot of the time, and I'm speaking from a current affairs perspective, it's not reserving the voice, but when we've had some of the articles that suit a specific perspective and suit a specific voice, it's nice to make it progressive that we have that perspective. And that's not telling other people, no, sorry, you can't write that, unless, depending on the content, sometimes it is. But it's ensuring we're not going to platform something unless we have the right voice behind it and a real life perspective. And that's speaking from my own perspective in current affairs, but I just think highlighting everyday affairs as well, highlighting what the student body is going through, making sure everyone feels a part of themselves in the paper, even if they're not writing anything, it can hopefully translate through to the entire student body.
Yeah, well, it sort of ties back to my whole opportunities and societies thing. I think it's well worth spotlighting societies that are for marginalized groups, just giving them a voice in the paper. Can make everyone feel so much more comfortable. I don't really want to say this, but student media feels very white. So I really want to be able to platform everyone's voices, whether that's NSR, just so everyone's heard. Yeah, like Sam said, obviously no platforming hate or anything.
Yeah, being able to kind of celebrate the diverse community that we have here at Newcastle is so important, and making sure that students who may feel underrepresented in our student paper or radio or TV is equally important. I think that's why I kind of thought about making an open door opportunities thing, so that people could come if they feel like they can't, then if they don't feel represented, then they can come and we can work together to sort of make a space where we can figure out how to do that together.
Do we have any more questions? Go on.
Enhancing skills from kind of active volunteers already, and also sort of encouraging new volunteers to also
Absolutely. You don't want to get stuck in a rut where it's the same people having the same opportunities, even though they're shared across. That's absolutely something. I think it links back to something I mentioned earlier. Using the assets you have in a phenomenal senior team and a phenomenal NXR exec and NUTV exec, if it's anything like we've worked with this past 2 years from what I've been there, and I know the guys who are coming up, people are very rare and ready to help, and I don't think people would want to be in a position where they're just taking the same opportunities. I think for me why cyclical media is so important is it's giving, for that very reason, but it's giving these fresh skills. Like one interview, like I said earlier, my example, one interview will give you an example of podcast editing, podcast interviewing, writing, writing, laying it up on a page. And yes, it does come with the concern it's the same people doing it over and over again, but that's why I think it's important the people running these sort of schemes or liaising with some sort of information, something like that usually forms with like a senior editor, and I've done a lot of that liaising information myself this year. And I guess the best example I can give is, out of all the front pages I've produced this year, I've tried my best to share the opportunities amongst the entire entire editorial team, do it in a fair way. I know who wants to do it. I keep people in mind for things that suit them. And we've had a different front page written by a different member of the editorial team each issue, and they've all been like different and fresh perspectives. So I hope that makes sense, but yeah, thank you.
Did you guys want to make a comment on that? Do we have any more questions? No? Okay, well, thank you so much for coming here and answering all of these questions, and thank you all for watching and for the audience for their questions.